practiced this week then, I guess? Then?
I'm sorry?
He wasn't here when we were here, so has he practiced this week?
Yes.
Okay.
How has he handled the last couple of weeks, James? We talked a lot about Sean, but how has Taekwon dealt with everything that he's kind of had to deal with?
Pretty well. I think him and Vayu both have handled things pretty well. They both have gotten a bunch of reps. Vayu's reps have dramatically gone up, obviously, with Sean's situation, because at that stage, Vayu is the number 3. I think they both handled it pretty well. Obviously, you're trying to compare and contrast, but it's two different scenarios a little bit. But I think they've handled it pretty well.
This whole journey out here earlier, how often does he get out to practice, and what does that say about him as a leader, that he's still coming out and offering guidance?
Yeah, he comes out. He comes out a lot. I'd like for him to be here every single day. Obviously academically, he's got a lot on his plate. It's really important to me that he graduates from Penn State, so really working hard at that, and I know he is as well. I'd like all these medical guys, Jordan Minor, Journey, all these guys, I want them around the program as much as possible. I think that's important for them. I think it's important for us. We've had kind of an unusual number of them, with pretty serious cases since I've been here, probably more so than I've been around.
James, considering Tyler Warren's history at quarterback and your usage of him as a wildcat, Sean didn't seem like a capable runner at the goal line last week in terms of utilizing him that way. Is Warren a guy that you continue to monitor, maybe being that short yardage guy? You used him at the 4th down in overtime. Yeah,
definitely. Obviously, that's what the package is for. There's strengths and minuses that come with that. Obviously, when it's your quarterback doing it, they have to defend kind of more of a wide open offense. But there's a place, obviously, for Tyler doing that, and we'll continue to do that.
James, when you look at kind of your running,
Is Audrey the only one that's asking questions today?
it's my show today, right?
Yeah. Okay. This is their third.
When you kind of look at your running game and the short yardage stuff, is there anything that stands out? I know you said yesterday you have to be more physical, get more of a push, but it seems like this has been an issue kind of more than just this year.
Yeah, I think the first thing, to your point, it's fundamentals and technique. It's also size and mass and strength. And it's also, making sure our runners are running with the right type of mentality down there. I think it's all of it. I don't think there's any question about that. So it's something we're going to continue to emphasize and continue to work on. But it starts with that. We got to get more push, and we got to be more physical at the point of attack. That's with our offensive line and tight ends.
James, you talked about being physical at the point of attack a couple weeks ago too. How do you go about addressing that in the middle of a season?
Yeah, I think we've gotten a little bit better. There's been signs of it. It's hard to do it in the season. Especially in practice when you want to stay off the ground and things like that and keep people healthy, especially with where we are from a health perspective. But I think more than anything, it's pad level, it's footwork, it's fundamentals that we were working today in practice. Having some of the good work that I think some of you guys were down there with the O-line, D-line, what we call pod work, working together. That's been important for us as well.
You mentioned last week Amin gaining weight and playing a little more inside as the season goes on to help out with the situation there. How much can a player change their body type during the season? And guys that maybe that did get to do something in the off season, is there potential for growth during the season in general?
Yeah, I think there is potential for growth, but I would also say that Amin, for example, has kind of always been a tweener. He's always been the big D end, and we've had a lot of conversations. There's been times where he's been at D tackle. There's been times that he's been at defensive end. And weight-wise, he's been one of our bigger defensive ends. So this has always been kind of something that we were talking about early on. We felt like we needed him at end for depth. But then obviously after losing PJ, we felt like the best thing was for him to move inside. But there are some challenges that come with that.
Hey, James, is there an impact physically, mentally, injury-wise, coming out of the gate with 2 or 3 really hard games, a whiteout kind of front-ending the schedule? Because that's not usually the case.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that factor into it. From a scheduling philosophy, whether it's the Big Ten scheduling philosophy, whether it's our scheduling philosophy. Our beginning of the season was very challenging, was very physical, was against very physical style teams. And with that, comes wear and tear and an importance of development from a depth perspective. One of the other things that we've been able to do in years past is play a lot of guys early on, develop them for depth later in the season, and you really didn't get to do either early on this season. So, that's the nature of it. We knew it was coming. We need to be prepared for it throughout summer, throughout the off season and things like that, once we decided to go with that type of schedule.
James, I think Travion Henderson was the 4th running back in Week 1 for Ohio State. What have you all seen from his body of work as a freshman that makes him such a standout right away?
Yeah, I think he's changed them. They've always obviously been talented at the running back position, but he's made them just so much more explosive. I obviously was a highly regarded guy out of high school, and he's showing that he's been able to do it. I think the biggest thing where he's different is the speed. He's extremely explosive, obviously behind one of the bigger offensive lines in the country, and then obviously the threats that they have on the perimeter as well. It's a challenging combination of athletes to stop.
You're a relationship guy, and when it comes to some of the stuff we've talked about away from football this week, at the end of the day, everybody just sort of has to take somebody's word for what they say. Do you worry about burning goodwill with people that you have to talk to? How do you balance whatever's going on in your life with the things you want to achieve here, the things you want to achieve in general, and getting that done while at the same time keeping life to yourself?
Yeah, I think it's fair. At some point, I'd love the guys to sit down with you guys over a beer and talk through all of this. Talk through all of this in detail, kind of how it goes, the challenging situations that coaches are put in sometimes, especially if you're trying to be honest and upfront with everybody, and that's something that's very, very important to me. I think I have shown my loyalty to this team, to this program, to this community. I think I've been pretty consistent with that. There's times that you're put in challenging situations, and I just always want to be able to, when I say something, it's done, and it's in stone. And when you're talking about the future, that can be challenging at times. So I am fiercely loyal to Penn State. I am fiercely loyal, most importantly, to these players and the staff. But there's a lot of moving parts with all of these things. There's a lot of moving parts, some of which we have talked about in the past. But at some point when it's appropriate, I would love to sit down with you guys and just kind of talk through college football, talk through these circumstances and these situations that come up. But I think your question is a fair one. But for me, that's what it's all about. It's about my relationships with these players and the staff and the people in that Lash building and the people in the community. And I think if people really would just take a minute and kind of think about how we've conducted ourselves over 8 years in the community and everything else, I think our actions have aligned with that every step of the way.
Two more. Is there something that, going along those lines, is there something that we're missing with this backup quarterback situation? As in, why didn't Taquan get a shot around the goal line when you're on the 7th, 8th 2-point try? Like, is that something that you guys had considered?
I think, like I've stated before, we felt like through practice, hours of evaluation on the field, hours of evaluation on film, that Sean gave us the best chance to win. Although he was limited, we felt like he gave us the best chance to win at this time, based on everything we know. I remember having a similar conversation with you guys a few years back about Trace McSorley.
James, both you and Sean this week have mentioned that he needs to be able to run the ball for this offense to do what it can do and create behind the line of scrimmage as well. Is that something you have to gauge throughout series by series this week to see, can he be that effective runner? And if he's not, do you have to have that plan B prepared?
Yeah, I think you always have to have the plan B prepared. But last Sunday, we knew it was kind of day to day. This Sunday, in my conversations, I think he's got a real good chance to be as close to 100% as we've seen in multiple weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.